Great jokes. Okay, so we're avoiding the Easter candy and turn off your phones. Those were the scoldings that I was going to give you tonight. The rest of it is all much nicer. So we have April is upon us, National Poetry Month, and there are quite a few. I mean, there's endless activities right now, but what we're doing, we have the workshop tomorrow. I'm sure we'll talk about that later. There's the Poetry Salon on Monday, and Poetry at McLeod on the 23rd of April. So if you want to know what's going on, I hope if you already are not receiving the newsletter, you can sign up for it at the, I'm sure that is hitting everyone up to give the addresses. So also our website, which is a little bit of a work in progress, but that should have all these events on there too. And, oh, I never do this. I always forget to introduce myself because I assume everybody knows me, but I'm Jim Lundy. I am the president of the Poetry Society of South Carolina. This is our 691st meeting of the Poetry Society. And what's even more incredible than that is our second one in a row that we were able to do in person in over 2 years. It has been a real trial to try to run something like this during COVID times. But one good thing that came out of it is our Zoom link, which we're continuing to do. So we have people watching from home and from all over the state, maybe the country, and a nice audience here tonight. So anyway, welcome everybody, and we're going to get started. So I think Emily is going to be introducing our opening poets. Come on up, Emily.
I can commiserate with how hard it is to be doing things, events during COVID times, so I applaud all the efforts. It's my pleasure to introduce the first reader tonight. Abigail Fitzpatrick is a writer from slightly south of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. She received a BA in philosophy from West Virginia University with minors in political science and creative writing. She is an MFA student at the College of Charleston, where she holds the Woodfin Fellowship in Poetry and is a senior editorial assistant at Crazy Horse. When she's not writing, she's playing with her rescue bunnies, painting, or studying concepts in international government, law, economics, public policy, as her goal is to attend law school next. Abigail Fitzpatrick's poetry illuminates the passages, descents, losses, and insights hard won by herself and by the influence of the women in her family. Her poems are generous in their candor and compassion, stunningly written, fierce, verdant, and consoling all at once. Her work has a spellbinding force with a fidelity to home and nature, and to the feelings and thoughts which are the wellspring of their existence. To convey a life is the most difficult art, and that is Abigail Fitzpatrick's achievement. Please, everyone, help me in welcoming Abigail.
I've never been introduced before, and that was better than I could have expected. This is also my first reading, so I appreciate you all for coming out, and you're free to laugh if I fuck up, which I will. So I have 5 poems that I'm going to read, and you know, some of them are supposed to be funny, so if you want to laugh, please do. This is Canaries with Clipped Wings. See the silk peak in hot July. Corn is plucked from its stalk. Swallowtails land on chosen petals and dead fish down beneath the bridge. Wild violets watch with lucky eyes, not picked for love-me-nots. The bridge is lucky too. In its glory and geriatric dry rot, waters low. Another winter has waved goodbye. Stagnant plateaus, second cousins to dry lake shores, married to breed mosquitoes that feed on the ankles of the young, dipping innocent fingers in the springs and washing, playing with the bullfrogs, yelping at the touch. Down the street from Dead Town, mothers weep. They lost their sons to the needle. Sisters, suicide. The canal lurches past disaster, pasture, and almost catches its own tail. Timothy grass wraps its length around heifer ankles, and stale hay dormant in its pillbug form. Most alive is the moss, pumping oxygen through still-breathing veins of streams and curtains flint. Canaries and mines are chirping to those who will listen. But if walls could talk, these mountains would sing, and everyone would hear the tune. This is on knowing and family traditions. Everything is about a broken heart. Write that down. My broken father would get high or drunk before he had to see me, a cleaner image of himself. I believed that. When I visit my mother, older each time I see her, I see this framed picture. Her holding me at midnight in the hospital, permed hair, same high cheekbones, same calm grin stretched across her then 42-year-old face, knowing damn well she would be in this alone and loving anyway. And until I see her, I forget love can be so much like a lamp. I lost my grandmother before I could say I'm sorry. I was so mean to her when I was 11. She died lying on the stuffed lamb I picked out when she was first admitted, only for a fall in the dark when no one was there to help her. I'm sorry, I love you, I'm sorry, I wasn't there to lift you. Soon after, I was 12 when I rescued a cat I named after that grandmother. I didn't know how unconditional felt until I loved this 22-pound monster. Mom said God knew who would take care of him, and I learned love as I held the cat down, wet in his own piss. Each day he seized, I shoved barbiturates all the way down his tiny clenched throat, still learning, knowing love, when his teeth pierced through my veins each time, blood dripping down my arms, I knew love. When I looked into my grandmother's open casket, held the fist-sized box of my cat's fresh ashes, I saw love. When I see new sprouting, perfect wrinkles on my mother, I know love. Heard love when my father came around, announced his cancer, his liver failure, holding a cigarette in one hand, beer in the other, only love, only fucking love, the loud and bright and cruel kind. It gets happier from here, I swear. Speckled wood butterfly. I'm on the lawn this afternoon. My skin is pink from burning. Wind seems to carry in a butterfly the size of a dime next to me. Her wings reflect pastel yellow. She is speckled with black spots. She is tired, resting on a blade of grass just as free as she. More free if you count pollination as a job, and you should. Some might say so is growing, but for me, it's been a privilege. When I was a child, I hated butterflies. My mother made me read every night, and once I read that they fed on animal carcasses and urine. Now, how different is that from the dry pork chop my mom made once a week? Seasoned with salt and onion. I'm not complaining, but it didn't taste good. She called it poor man's steak, and surely served it alongside canned applesauce, simmered warm on the stovetop with a pinch of cinnamon. Our other meal was halushki, filling the kitchen with scents of sweaty cabbage. My mother would proudly announce to the empty room, I'm a hunky woman. Her grandmother never learned English. She fled Slovakia before the Holocaust could take 100,000 of her people. My mother learned from her how to steam cabbage in 50-cent pasta, add butter, black pepper, then wash the dishes all by the age of 5. But my mother only remembers her babushka saving up for a nice material, smiling with prominent cheekbones, handing mom a tiny yellow hand-sewn dress. My mother, always a poor farm girl, it was her only nice dress. 60 years later saying, I loved her and she loved me, though she never heard her speak. Here, now, I can't see my mother working a stovetop to feed me before herself. I see her free, 5 years old in her special yellow dress, speckled with farm's dirt like black pepper, resting on these blades of grass. My great-grandmother is the wind, and the world can finally hear her. In my tiny pond where the water is warm, I want to write happy. I want what I write to sting like ginger ale on a sore throat, to kiss like citrus. How can I help a listening friend? How can words sit deliciously in between like peanut butter under a chocolate sleeve, my arm under my man's sweatshirt? Write the unconditional, infinite life from my mom who is her stories, for my bunny who loves unconditionally. Fan my words to air out the scars on my face, show you all, for you all, your clever grandmothers, your fat house cats, your pretty moonlight sunken skin. I was healed when it hurt by a crooked rose of Sharon shrub, ways the wind sounded on my green walls, knowing I'd grow out. With a child's belly full on a perfect snack of pimento stuffed green olives served on chipped plates with an old little white house in the middle, just like mine. We couldn't ask for finer porcelain. The only green I see today is the piney mountain line, palm leaves, my best friend's green eyes. The dollar folded in the bottom of my burlap purse that matches the dollar in my mother's pleather. In February 2009, I was 10 years old, and I wrote, I want to write everything I see. I saw pink ladies with sharp teeth. I imagined an underwater world where I said crazy things, but they mattered in the news. I wanted long hair, to know it all so I could sing it, to write peace, no bad words, no bad days, just me telling every single one of you, I love this page like I loved my turtle sandbox. They both reminded me I am a big fish. Finally, in the mouths of storms. 6 rows of teeth, not so spaced, sat quiet among 3 of us, while a special feeling passed over or through. This pink and blue sunset, this tulip shaded sky, I felt the clouds spread in my chest like violent shakes from the flu, something like warm chills for its vibrations. The sun is licking your face. Red sky at night, sailor's delight, still the leaves overhead turn inside out. Then my best friend said I needed lip fillers, politely. I never liked my thin lips since I busted them open in ballet class when I was 8 and eager and spinning a pirouette. The scar left behind is a little red dot I forget about most days, like a crow might forget its own beak. You cut him off, pleaded, your lips are perfect, you hear me? I trust you to tell me the truth. I like that you said you hate my paintings of devils, my 7 self-portraits. I like the way you're bad at baseball. I like the way your laugh stops itself like a cough, the way you let me watch you, how the mountains watch their fault lines, how they hear them cry while they shift, move. Babies don't cry when they see you. When thunder growls and yawns, those clouds in the beginning are like eggs in a cake recipe, essential. Need reminded they mean something. Otherwise, bleached flower, these flowers would fall flat. Red dot on my lip, gash underneath your chin. Lightning strike me down, I'm happy here. Unsafe and safe with you and your past. Your song called Smile Like You Mean It. My song called How It Ends. Rain or rainbow, there's always something in the middle.
Hello, everyone. It is my pleasure to introduce our featured poet tonight, Khalisa Rae. Evelyn Berry was supposed to be here, so she wrote this for her. I'm here to do that. Khalisa Rae is an award-winning poet, educator, journalist, and queer rights activist in Durham, North Carolina. Her debut poetry collection, Ghost in a Black Girl's Throat, published by Red Hen Press in 2021, is a haunting, a conjuring, and a reconciliation populated by ghosts. Of this collection, Jackie Shelton Green writes, "These verses are timeless refrains sizzling on parched tongues. All praises for the testament of these poems that bring a full communion of blessed assurances to wise women, daring oceans to erase our footprints, and to wild girls chasing winds that steal the scent of herstory." Khalisa Rae is also the author of the 2012 chapbook, Real Girls Have Real Problems, which was adapted into the play The 7 Deadly Sins of Being a Woman. Her poetry has appeared in Electric Lit, Rust and Moth, Pinch, Southern Humanities Review, Hobart, Pink, Frontier Poetry, and elsewhere. Her nonfiction, focused on Black queer narratives, has been featured in Autostraddle, Vogue, Catapult, Lit Hub, Bitch Media, Black Femme Collective, Body.com, NBC-BLK, and many other outlets. Khalisa Rae holds an MFA from Queens University of Charlotte. She is the recipient of the Fem Lit Magazine Contest, White Stag Publishing Contest, Wings Poetry Contest, and Furious Flower Gwendolyn Brooks Poetry Prize, among others. Khalisa Rae is an activist and beacon for the literary community. She is the co-founder of Think in Ink and the Women of Color Speak reading series, co-founder of Poet.she in Greensboro, co-founder of the Invisibility Project, and co-founder of Athenian Press, a queer poets of color writers collective, resource center, and bookstore in Wilmington, North Carolina. Currently, Khalisa is the senior writer at Jezebel Magazine and 6-time Best of the Net and Pushcart nominee. We share these achievements not just as a recitation of a very impressive resume, but also to impress the importance that Khalisa places on community building in and out of the literary world. We are ecstatic to bring her tonight to the Poetry Society of South Carolina, to listen to the ghosts she conjures through poems, and to find, during National Poetry Month, the community and connection possible through poetry. Also, she wanted me to note, tomorrow is the Appalachian Arts and Culture Awards, the Appies, and she's been nominated for one of those, and she's feeling pretty confident about it. So I just wanted to throw that in there as well. So please join me in welcoming from Durham, North Carolina, tonight's featured reader, Khalisa Rae.
Hello, how are all of you? Good. So I'm so excited to be here. Let's get the formalities out of the way because I'm a little vulgar. So we'll get that out and then we'll have some fun, okay? So first, thank you so much to the Poetry Society for having me. This is an honor and privilege to be back in Charleston. Thank you so much for your reading. Kiss Like Citrus is such a beautiful line, and I'm gonna keep that with me. So many lines that I love. Thank you so much to everyone for coming today and sharing. Thank you for that beautiful introduction. I hate that Evelyn can't be here. I've known her for a really long time, so that would have been a joy, so you have to send my regards. Now that that's out of the way, so I always say when I read, poetry is not like golf. Okay, so as I'm reading, I have a little bit of homework for you, okay? So if you hear something you like, don't just sit quiet in your seat. We feed off of your energy. So if you hear something that moves you in your loins, you have some options, okay? You can go, try that. You can snap, right? So try that too. All right, you can say, spit that poet, try it. Spit that poet. Or my husband Eric back there. Let's give it up for Eric. Yes. Does an excellent job So he likes to say, yeah, yeah. Can I hear that too? Yeah, yeah. All right, so those are some options for you tonight as we're reading, because poetry is a conversation between people. I truly believe that. It's an exchange of energy and it's a conversation. So I wrote Ghost in a Black Girl's Throat because, secret, I'm actually not from the South. I was born in a little town called Gary, Indiana. Who here has heard of Gary, Indiana? Yeah, so there's some famous folks, right, that were born in Gary, not too far from the house that I was born in. And, but I migrated to Wilmington, North Carolina for college, and that left an impression on me. Does anybody know about the historical event that happened in Wilmington, North Carolina in 1898? So there was a horrific massacre that happened. It's the only successful coup d'etat that America has ever had happened in Wilmington, North Carolina. And when I got there from Gary, Indiana, and eventually we moved closer to Chicago and Maryville. And so I'm this big city girl moving to Wilmington, North Carolina for college. And for many, many years, I could not understand why, when I got to Wilmington, North Carolina, did I feel really unsettled all the time. And when you get to Wilmington, North Carolina, they have these things called ghost tours. And I thought, because, you know, I'm a naturally scary person, I can't stand horror films, I just thought it was because the town was haunted, right? No big deal. And so I go through 3.5 years of college, honestly, and no one told me why I was eventually sinking into a really, really deep, dark place while I was in college there. And I would hear people say, this is a strange place. It was almost like something out of The Haunting, or one of those scary movies that my husband loves to watch, The Othering, or whatever the movie is. It was really, really creepy. And you would hear people talk about it, but you would never hear them talk about the source. So, fast forward. I do a student exchange at UNC Greensboro, and instantly I feel this weight lifted from my shoulders. And I'm like, wait a minute. What is the difference? Because we're still in North Carolina, right? There's something going on here, right? So I go to Greensboro, change immediately, brighter. I'm walking on sunshine. So I'm there walking around feeling so good. Well, it's just a year student exchange. And so I have to go back to Wilmington, unfortunately. And I get back there and I feel this heavy weight on my shoulders the minute I return. And so I get into this really deep, dark depression, and I join this church. And the matriarchs, I asked them, I'm like, somebody, you have to tell me, because I just got back and there's something different. I was like, I need for you to stop tiptoeing. Something's happening. And that's when they tell me about the Wilmington 1898 race massacre, where hundreds, if not thousands, of Black people were killed and thrown in the river by the militia, the racist militia. And I said, oh, that makes a lot of sense. That makes a lot of sense. And so immediately, fast forward, I got the hell out of Dodge and transferred. Thank God I did, because I would have never met my husband and I would have never accomplished some of the things that were right in my bio and many other things that I was afforded to do once I got to Greensboro. So I transferred to North Carolina A&T University, the best decision that I've ever made. But as I left my undergraduate position to go to my MFA, and study with Claudia, Rankine, and Limon, they encouraged me to write about that experience. Unforgettable experience. And so that's how we get Ghost in a Black Girl's Throat. I've had the privilege also of penning my thesis dissertation outside the canon that talks a lot about that too, about the many writers that came before me that are stunning, but I never learned about while I was in college, especially at UNC Wilmington. And so I wanted to set the tone for some context around some of the poems that you're going to hear tonight so that you can understand my journey. And without further ado, I'm going to start with the title poem, Ghost in a Black Girl's Throat, because I think that that'll give you just, it'll be a great follow-up to what we just talked about. Now, don't forget your homework, okay? You had that very moving story. Mm-hmm. I still need that energy, okay? This is Ghost in a Black Girl's Throat. The South will birth a new kind of haunting in your Black girlness. Your Black womanness becomes a poached confection, honeyed enigma pledging to be allegiant. The muddied silk robe waving in their amber grains of bigotry. Your skin a sun-kissed question, blood-stained equation no one wants to answer. You will be the umber, tawny, terracotta tongue splattered on their American flag, beautiful brown spangled anthem that you are. You will be the bended knee in the boot of their American dream, and they will stitch your mouth the color of patriarchy. Call it Black girl magic when we rip the seams. Southern Belle is just another way to say stayed in her place on the right side of the pedestal. And your rhetorical skin will get caught in a crosshair of questions like, where are you from? No, where are you really from? And where are you from will get asked more than how are you doing, like this name, this tongue, this hair ain't a tapestry of things they made you forget, the continent they forced to the back of your throat, because that's what they will come for first, your throat. They know that be your superpower, your furnace of rebellion, so they silence you before the coal burns. Resurrect monuments of ghosts on your street to keep you from ever looking up. Build a liquor store on every corner so we don't notice the curated segregation. Call it redistricting. Our cities muzzle the men with gallows for tongues and call it obedience school. Synthesize our ghettos, graffiti them in gold, and then call it urban redevelopment. And the South will make bitch a sweet exaggeration of your name. Sit, speak, come when spoken to, and the leash will always be taught, always gripping around a word you never said, your body, an apparition, hologram of your former self. Too much magic in one room turns sorcery. And we be witches, don't we? Reassembling the chandeliers of our reflection, we spin a web of shade and make it a place to rest under broad oak that it is. They will suck the mucus from our jubilation, our gatherings now a cancer, but we will clap back with shaking hands because that's all we got. These voices, these throats, this righteous indignation, they will start with the muzzle, always taught to melt the metallic of our wills, always a rusted bit in the mouth of the horse that was too stubborn to ever be spooked by your ghosts. Thank you.
Say that, Chloe.
I have the privilege of traveling nationally around the world performing poetry, or had until I stopped doing slam poetry with my husband. And this next poem I'm going to read for you is true. We get to Denver for the National Poetry Slam, and I decide while my husband is at rehearsal so he's been a part of the Jambalaya Bull City Poetry Slam team, award-winning slam team for many, many years since we started doing 10+ years. And I get to this coffee shop and I sit down at this large table that could fit probably about 10. And I start to write. And in comes a family, a white family. And I turn around and feel something against my shoulder. And it's the father of the family backing up into me as if I wasn't there. And I penned this poem. Body apology. Today, I left a space so white bodies could inhabit more comfortably. Today, I got out of my seat so a white family could sit in my place. Today, I accommodated a white body, no thank you. Today, I was accommodating, I am often accommodating. Today, a white family stood behind my table, pressing against my back. I was expected to leave, never asked. I should have planted my black body instead of being uprooted like a weed to be plucked. Today, I was an apology. I apologize for my presence and no one says thank you. I apologize for my presence often. I get cut off, I end up apologizing. I am pushed past, walked in front of, excuse me, no response. Sometimes I go to white spaces, plant myself, just because I know my roots aren't welcome there. I've been thinking a lot lately about the matriarchs. And so when people ask me why my book calls upon several different types of ghosts, I say it's because there are a lot of different types of hauntings that there can be, right? So it just doesn't have to be the ghost of the ancestors that died in Wilmington, North Carolina, that were cast aside right into this river. It could also be my personal ancestors and matriarchs that I had to call upon to make it through this horrific college experience. And so I talk a lot in my book to the spirits or the ghost of other women that came before me, other Black women and brown women that came before me that I needed for strength to make it through this college experience. I spent a total of probably 7 or 8 years in Wilmington. After I tried to leave, the universe kept pulling me back. There was more community work that I was called to do. I kept being called back to start organizations. Total, I think I've started about 4 nonprofits throughout North Carolina. And so I tried to escape and it pulled me back. I tried to escape, pulled me back. And so every single time I had to say, hey, matriarchs, I need you. Where did you go? We just heard a joke last night by Roy Woods that said, isn't that a testament of the resilience of Black people that even when we die, we still have to help people out? And so I just think that that just speaks to what I talk about in my book. I bring that up because I'm going to switch gears to different types of ghosts for just a second. How many of you saw the interview between Oprah and Raven-Symoné when Raven-Symoné was asked about her heritage and her culture and growing up as a Disney star? And then she flat out told Oprah, I don't really know how to answer that question because I'm not Black. I'm American and America is colorless. And so my whole life, people have said that I look just like her. And so upon working with Claudia Rankine, she said, you need to write a poem to her. So this is what I wrote to Raven-Symoné. You undress your skin so easily, as if this ethnicity were a hoodie on a hot day and you thought it best to take off before recognized or assumed. When the weight of your identity becomes a burden, you refuse to carry it on this journey as a brown woman. But who are we kidding? We were both the light-skinned girl everyone in class asked, what you mixed with? We were both on the playground when Billy Sanford pulled our hair and said we talk white. Both the only Black girl on the cheerleading team and weren't invited to the team sleepover. We both got a rude awakening when our teacher changed our A paper to an F. But we stayed trying to remove all this dead weight and tool, all this centuries of Ghanaian beating and Cape Town stitch work like we don't know where we're from. We stayed climbing inside someone else's silhouette, trying to oblique unzip this Montclair passing skin. But I will always be the Black ball gown in a room full of white wedding dresses, and I am reminded every day against this taffeta backdrop of muted hues and random fabrics, equality turns into invisibility the longer you exist here. Saying, I don't see color means I don't see you. And I do not want to silence. Not when there is still so much yet to say. Thank you. Yes. So I preface that in my matriarch conversation because I do a lot of chastising of mothers and grandmothers in this book about things that I felt like they never told me or shared with me through this journey. How could I be so naive not to know some of the things that I should have known about body and sexuality and how to speak up and how to advocate for myself when I went through these experiences that I shared with you? And I started to give them a little more grace. when I thought back about that conversation with Oprah and Raven Simone, because now Oprah didn't have another conversation with her for her to like share her new thoughts. But I did see another interview where Raven said, my mom never spoke to me about this. I didn't know. I now proudly am, but I didn't know because we never had these conversations. And so I started to give the matriarchs a little more grace throughout this book. This is full moon to Monday, not so much grace here, but I've come a long way since this point. College cracked the fantasy wide open. All our pretty woman dreams flatlining in the bottom of some frat guy's basement. Memories of the talk and how she left out the part about surgery. The stitching and the staining, and then there's recovery. Came home from break still soaking through the gauze of this girlhood and all our moms could tell. But no one spoke the truth. That you can be 6 shots in and his hands won't reek of meat. That his toothy grin will be dripping with blood and flesh, and all the songs he'll play in the dark corner of his back seat in his car will be foreshadowing, but you won't even know he did it. You won't even remember a thing, because Molly is a new pickup line and he's got those for days. Nothing mom said about sugary and not putting out prepared you for drugs and scalding hot showers to rinse the memories out. Vanishing after you texted and told him you were pregnant, and that shame hashtagged all over Facebook. That innocence we knew is gone like hope that faculty actually aren't hooking up with freshmen. Somewhere between T-ball and toga parties, the rules change from checking yes, no, maybe to him marking his criminal territory. At least then we had the right to choose and feel like we had options. But here, now we are left to break and mend, stitch our wounds to not spill the secrets, sober our sorrows, and be back before Monday's 8 a.m. exam. I wrote that, thank you. I wrote that and then had a conversation with my mom about all the things that she left out, just blaming her for much of the mistakes I made in college. And Pally Poetry asked me to actually, because of some of these like very gripping experiences I've had, they asked me to do a column for them to talk about that. And I call my mom and I say, hey, I need some pieces of information that my memory won't let me weave together. And when I talked to her about that experience and the other, she's like, that didn't happen. When these things didn't happen. And I'm like, Mom, they did, but that's okay. Like maybe one day when I have a kid, I'll be that way too, so protective over the idea of the memory and not really remembering truths. And I grapple with that a lot in this book. Truths and untruths and memories and things that were hidden from me. And honestly, y'all, those are the ghosts in the throat. Things that were hidden from me, things I was told to never talk about. I always say that I was always at 2 positions of haunting my whole life and 2 intersections of trauma, because I'm a survivor of assault and abuse as a kid, and then I came to a place that was haunted, and I was like, I was doomed, right? I needed an exorcism, and this book is an exorcism for me in a way. I want to read another piece for y'all when we talk about calling on ancestors to make it through. I also had to write pieces that empowered me to see beyond some of these haunting memories that I had, those that mom and dad denied, those that people in the town told me did not exist, and it took upwards of 5 or how many years for people to come true about why I was feeling the way I did. So here's an empowering piece that I had to write for me to make it through. This is reclaiming our phenomenal moments. Also for Maya Angelou. When did we lose our phenomenon? I think we left it on back stoop, abandoned it like baby on steps for anyone to pick up and call their own. I think we tucked it under our tongues, let it dissolve and melt away, but the taste of it still lingers. We spread our phenomenal across beds in the backs of cars where we opened it for anyone who said the magic word. We smeared it on counters and couches, maybe the jam or marmalade to lick off for satisfaction. But woman, you have been phenomenal and everlasting since the beginning of time, since the Nile and cradle of civilization and Lucy. Your phenomenal bones are proof that we were once here and breathing and everything. Our brown bosoms have brought nations to their knees. Our open mouths have made even the most powerful cower. Our brick and mortar skin has always been a phenomenal destination. Brownstone thighs, handcrafted cathedrals of a waist, sweltering temple lips, a museum of a mind. We will find our phenomenon when we stop looking and just be.
Say that, poet.
Thank you. Round out, as I come to a close, I want to, before I go, I'd be remiss if I didn't read Mahalia Sings to Freedom. I don't know if y'all remember when they were talking about Harriet Tubman being on a dollar bill and how amazing that would be. And then, you know, I love the really like amazing group chats that I'm in, but also the Twitter discourse that changed my mind about how that's actually not progress for a beacon to be on currency and just the historical implications of that. And it made me think in a different way about it. And so I love looking back at some of the poems I've written for figures. There's a lot of like poems to people, letters to folks in this book. And I love looking back on poems like this and thinking how I matured and changed my viewpoint on things. But my feelings about this still remain, I think. Mahalia Sings to Freedom has an epigraph by Harriet Tubman. And it says, I had crossed the line, I was free, but there was no one here to welcome me to the land of freedom. I was a stranger in a strange land, Harriet Tubman. And I am stranger still a face no one recognizes, still an excuse to clutch first and ask questions later, still a reason to shoot, then investigate, still a reason to attach false crimes to my name, always a barely human body. How I arrived here will be a mystery. My captors repeating the same investigation, how I managed to trudge to freedom after traversing this terrain, like bondage is just something I got over. As if a stump, a hill, a broken heart. Like I ain't belly crawl and scrape through mud and shit. 1,000-mile tunnels just to get here. How did I make it over? My captors will ask and wonder, cockhead to side, perplexed at how my cracked skin and wrinkled brow broke free, and stumbled on the cover of Currency. And this gentle arrival will be enough to convict me from fleeing captivity. How did I make it over? How does any fugitive arrive? Rope burn still fresh and bleeding, bandaged back still raw, selling, and soil covered, and still I made it over. But I never do forget the scars etched in my skin or the bounty on my head, worth more than the sum of me. Thank you. End on two high notes. I like to read Mackerel at any reading because it's a crowd favorite and also picks the energy up in the room from being so heavy. If you've read the book, you know about Mackerel. So one of the ghosts in my throat was the ghost of sexual identity and the idea that queerness is very taboo in the Black community. I don't know if y'all know, but you don't talk about being queer. You don't speak about it. You just keep that thing right here or lower, right? You just suppress, right? Well, that suppression can drive you a little batty over years. And so I, while doing my master's program and penning this book, another book that my phenomenal teachers encouraged me, or another poem that my teachers encouraged me to talk about was the idea behind reclaiming those memories that you were told to forget from the fire. drudge them up and reclaim them in a way that doesn't have to be haunting anymore. And so that's what I did with Malcolm. When I was 12 or 13, my mama caught me and a special girlfriend bouncing our vaginas off the end of the bedpost like live bait. Our bodies rubbing against the maple wood, trying to catch a spark on the cold, hard thing between our legs. It was an awakening. The mystique of our innocence rising to where my mother and her friends sat talking. And we were just at the point of falling off the boat. The moment when the pink of the salmon is so tender. When my mother opened the door, doused our flames with holy water and scripture and made us forget the sweet communion of burning. Years after she scrubbed the cedar from our clothes, I learned that my body is only alive when it is free to choose when and where it starts a fire. How long it allows itself to be wet and waiting. The power comes in knowing that my body is no tadpole, no fish to roast over hot coals. It is the flame itself, the blue and red ghost that survives even after the smoke clears. Thank you. I'm gonna end on one more circus acts. I think I want to end on circus acts. This has been fun. Thank you for being here and being present. Thank you so much. I would give you a strong, solid B on your homework. Strong, solid B. So let's try for that before we go. Okay. All right. Here's circus acts. No more black girl magic. Black woman. This world will make you circus act, freak show, tightrope walker, contort your name from sorority to Sarah Bartman, then Hotep, Venus, stage performer. I see you. Look how they abracadabra the royal exploitation of your form. Watch them dissect your broad bottom, saw you into science experiment. Call your mending magic, your root bomb and salve a work of the devil. Go out the trap door and come back in the body of Beyonce. Prize possession. They will spit shine the stage for you again, girl. What a spectacular woman. Two-headed and I'm not present. 1 foot here, 1 foot in Houdini state. Your magic trick is, look at all the wonder I can do with 2 hands in 24 hours. When people say, that's black girl magic, say I have no magic. I make meals from crumbs, cast demons with just my tongue, envision possibility from potential. That makes me scientist, inventor, chemist, spiritual being. Tell them this is not super, this is survival. When they call you hero, when they hand you the cake anyway, say haven't I carried enough. When they call your strength otherworldly, say it is the Venus rising in me. Nothing more. Thank y'all so much for having me. I want to share with you is if you like what you heard today, please find me somewhere on the internet, bookstore.com, @Khalisa & Connect with me. As you heard from my bio, I love sharing resources, wisdom, whatever I can. I have a lot of resources. I'm just blessed to have them, and so I want to share them with you. If you want to be a full-time writer, I know a lot about publishing. I have a lot of access to things that I want to share and that I want to give. So please connect with me. Please talk to me while I'm here. The other little thing is, so if you want to know about future projects, Unlearning Eden, my YA novel in verse, just got representation. Woo, woo. So next year, and then right after that, my romance novel. So I'm really excited about that. And so please stay in touch with me, hop on my newsletter so that you can find out like projects after that. And let's stay connected. Thank y'all again. Yes, I can. So please invite a friend and come back to my Outside the Canon Southern Voices workshop. I don't know if you heard me when I was talking about how for my MFA program, I wrote this thesis dissertation that started a lot of conversation. because I called the literary canon out and I said, wait a minute, these poets I never heard of before are phenomenal, but not only that, they started, created, reinvented tons of forms, right? They reimagined what craft was. And when I was in my undergraduate program and in my MFA program, I got taught often that because I came from originally a oratory, spoken word, slam background, or they thought I did, that's actually not true, but they thought that I had come from the slam world, that somehow I was less than, that somehow my pen wasn't as masterful as others. And so what I did in my thesis program, Claudia, Rankine, and Ada were like, no, we're not gonna let that fly. So what we're gonna do is that's gonna be your thesis, that you're going to study the untruths, right, that were told to you, the falsehoods that were making you feel less than. And so I dug and I learned, and these are things that I knew, but I had to go research. I learned that actually almost every famous Black or brown author right now that started in poetry, guess what, y'all? They used to be a slam poet. They used to be a performer, and we can go back centuries past that. So we know oration didn't just start with slam poetry, right? That's something that indigenous people have been doing since the beginning of time, right? And so somehow, throughout the course of the canon, we somehow thought that this legacy and history of spoken storytelling is somehow deemed less than, right? And I'm not sure how we got there. And so I had to do a lot of studying around how do I, if I was speaking in front of an audience that didn't know these things, how do I break down for people that not only is the canon crap, right? But what is that? What is the canon? But not only that, if we were to preserve the canon, these people, right? Langston, Maya, Nikki, right? Should, if anybody, be in them, right? And so that is what my workshop is about. That's what my thesis dissertation was about. That's what my lifelong work has been about, studying and gleaning from these poets that received National Book Awards, right? Denez Smith, Elizabeth Acevedo, right? Patricia Smith, right? Nikki Finney, Claudia, right? All came from a spoken background, right? And so we're going to study the masterful way in which they craft their work at my workshop, but really it's gonna be a conversation too about, you know, your favorite poet's favorite poet. Yeah, they would have been booted out the canon, right, back in ancient time. Walt Whitman would have kicked them out, right, and said, "Look," right? And so we're gonna kind of have that conversation, but we're also gonna learn about these beautiful, beautiful voices, particularly focusing on Southern voices that were left outside the canon. Thank y'all so much.
Thank you, Khalisa. Thank you, Abigail. That was wonderful. Reading, we have books. Our friends from Buxton Books have supplied books, and so there'll be a book signing immediately following my remarks. And don't forget about the workshop tomorrow. All the other things going on for National Poetry Month. Check out our website, poetrysocietysc.org. And if you signed up for the newsletter tonight, I will put you on the list. Thanks for bringing up Nikki Finney. She's going to be reading for us next month. So anyway, great things coming. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, people at home watching us from Zoom. I hope you enjoyed tonight as well as much as we did here in person. So with that, feel free to socialize. We're done.